You think empathy is always light, gentle, healing, selfless. But ask yourself, what happens when that light blinds you to your own darkness? How long can you absorb everyone else's pain before your soul fractures under the weight? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to scream no? How often have you comforted others while secretly drowning in your own silence? The world praises your kindness. But does it see the toll? Do they notice the exhaustion in your eyes when you smile? Do they feel the resentment buried beneath your careful tone? Or have you become so skilled at carrying burdens that no one suspects you are breaking? Jung's warning strikes here: whatever you repress returns with vengeance. For the empath, the danger is not anger expressed, but anger denied. You bury rage beneath compassion until one day it erupts, not as a whisper, but as a storm. That moment, the day the empath snaps, is not sudden at all. It is years of silence, breaking open years of self-betrayal, collapsing into one terrifying truth: you cannot pour endlessly without shattering. So the question cuts sharply: is your empathy genuine strength, or is it the mask that hides your fear of conflict? Do you truly help others, or do you sacrifice yourself to avoid being unloved? And most urgently, what happens when the day arrives that you can no longer hold it in? When the empath snaps, it is not compassion that speaks, but the shadow you refuse to face. You were taught to believe that empathy is always noble, that the more you give, the better you are. But pause and ask yourself, how much of your so-called kindness is actually fear of rejection? How often do you protect others' feelings at the expense of your own truth? And when you silence your anger in the name of peace, do you not feel the quiet corrosion eating away at your dignity? Society praises empaths as saints, but rarely tells the full story. You are applauded for your patience, admired for your compassion, leaned on for your strength. Yet beneath the applause lies the truth people will keep taking until nothing of you remains. And because you refuse to admit exhaustion, you disguise depletion as virtue. Do you see how dangerous that becomes, not only for you, but for those around you? When your restraint finally breaks, Carl Jung warned that what you repress does not vanish, it grows. Every unspoken no, every swallowed anger, every night you collapse in silence accumulates in the shadow. Outwardly, you remain composed, the reliable caretaker. Inwardly, a storm builds that one day will not be contained. The empath's collapse is not sudden. It is the inevitable result of years of self-erasure. This is the terrifying paradox. The very quality that makes you seem safe to others is what makes you most dangerous when ignored. When the empath snaps, the eruption is not measured, it is catastrophic. And the tragedy is that it could have been prevented with boundaries, honesty, and courage. So the question confronts you: are you truly compassionate, or are you addicted to being needed? Do you value others' peace more than your own soul? And most urgently, will you wake to the danger before it consumes you, or will you keep calling your slow destruction love? Jung's psychology exposes why the empath's collapse is so devastating. You believe empathy makes you virtuous, but beneath it lies a complex web of masks, shadows, wounds, and projections that you rarely acknowledge. Each layer of your psyche holds both promise and danger, and when neglected, they conspire toward one inevitable moment: the day you break. Persona, the mask of endless kindness. You wear a mask that tells the world, I am patient, understanding, safe. It wins approval, trust, and love. But what happens when the mask becomes indistinguishable from your face? How often do you hide resentment behind a soft smile? How many times do you silence your truth to maintain the image of the gentle one? The persona was meant to protect you in society, but when you identify with it too completely, you lose the ability to admit that you are angry, tired, or hurt. Jung warns that when the persona hardens, the authentic self suffocates beneath it. Is your kindness still a choice, or has it become a prison you dare not leave, shadow? The buried fire, the anger you refuse to express does not disappear. It gathers in the shadow. You tell yourself you are above rage, but in truth, you are drowning in it. Every yes you give when you mean no adds fuel. Every betrayal you tolerate sharpens the blade. You fear conflict so deeply that you repress it, but repression is not resolution. The shadow waits, storing energy until one day it bursts. When that day comes, your eruption shocks not only others but yourself. Ask, are you tending to the shadow by acknowledging it daily, or are you pretending it doesn't exist until it consumes you? Complexes, wounds that dictate kindness. Your compulsion to help is rarely pure. It often originates in childhood wounds. Perhaps you learned early that love had to be earned by serving others, or that peace could only be preserved if you absorbed chaos silently. These complexes shape your adult empathy, driving you to sacrifice even when no one asks. Do you ever notice how you attract broken people, not because you are cursed, but because your wound compels you to fix what mirrors your past? Until you recognize the complex, your empathy is not compassion, it is compulsion. Are you truly choosing to care, or are you reenacting an old bargain for survival? Projection attracting the wounded. Because you disown your own rage and needs, you attract others who embody them. You take on their chaos, mistaking it for your calling, when in truth, it is your projection. You see in others the anger, selfishness, or aggression you forbid in yourself. By helping them, you unconsciously attempt to heal what you never admitted inside you. Ask how many of your relationships are rescues, not partnerships. How many of your sacrifices are attempts to repair yourself by proxy? Projection blinds you, keeping you entangled with those who drain you. Unless you withdraw these projections, you will confuse codependency for empathy and martyrdom for love. The self, wholeness, or collapse. At the center lies the self, the totality of who you are, the balance of compassion and assertiveness, light and shadow, giving and receiving. Individuation, Jung's path to wholeness, demands that you stop identifying only with the empathy persona. It requires that you integrate anger without letting it destroy you, acknowledge your wounds without becoming ruled by them, and reclaim your right to boundaries without guilt. The self does not reject empathy, but it refuses empathy that erases the soul. So the crucial question arises, will you walk the difficult path of integration, or will you keep clinging to the mask until the shadow explodes? The Jungian foundations reveal the terrifying truth. The day the empath snaps is never sudden. It is the natural consequence of ignoring these forces. The persona exhausts you, the shadow waits, the complex commands, the projection entangles, and the self demands wholeness. Ignore this architecture, and collapse is inevitable. Attend to it, and empathy transforms from a dangerous compulsion into a balanced strength. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, do you still believe your endless giving is love? Or can you see it as the slow rehearsal of your own destruction? Do you recognize the shadow's whispers before they become screams? Are you willing to confront the wounds that drive your compulsions? And most urgently, will you claim yourself before your denied fragments claim you? Because if you do not, the day you snap will not be the day you change. It will be the day you shatter. The empath's collapse is not theoretical. It plays out in daily life. Look closely and you will see the same pattern repeating across work relationships, family, even within your own body. What appears kind or responsible on the surface conceals years of repressed anger, hidden exhaustion, and a self eroded piece by piece. The snap, when it comes, is simply the eruption of everything you denied. Work, the quiet martyrdom. You take on tasks no one else wants. You stay late, smooth conflicts, absorb blame. At first, colleagues admire your reliability. But beneath the praise, resentment builds. How many times have you smiled through clenched teeth fixing messes while others went home free? How many emails have you answered at midnight, not because you wanted to, but because you feared disappointing someone? The day comes when a small request, a misplaced file, a careless comment ignites years of buried anger. You explode, and they say, "Why are you overreacting?" They never saw the mountain beneath the straw. Did you? Relationships. Tolerance, that turns to fury. You stay in relationships long past their worth. You forgive insults, excuse neglect, endure betrayals. You tell yourself, "I can understand their pain. I can carry it." But empathy mutates into servitude. Ask yourself, how many times have you said yes to intimacy you did not want? Agreed to silence when you longed to speak? Apologized when you were the one wounded? The day comes when one more broken promise shatters you, and you unleash a storm the other never expected. They call you cruel, unstable, heartless. But was it sudden, or was it the sum of all the boundaries you refused to defend? Family, the peacemaker's prison. You grew up smoothing over conflict, keeping siblings calm, soothing parents' rage, filling silence with compliance. As an adult, you still play the role. You host, mediate, absorb tension. But every holiday leaves you drained. Every call reminds you that you are not child nor equal. You are caretaker always. How many times have you gone home from family gatherings with a smile on your face but rage in your gut? The day comes when one cutting remark triggers years of swallowed truth. You scream, you walk out, or you cut ties completely. To them, it seems unthinkable. To you, it was inevitable. Body, the collapse of silent service. The body keeps score. You call it fatigue, headaches, weight you cannot lose, illnesses that repeat. But beneath them lies your refusal to rest, your refusal to say no. How many mornings have you dragged yourself from bed already depleted, pretending you are fine? How many nights have you collapsed into sleep with resentment still simmering? The body denied its voice eventually breaks. You faint at work. You develop chronic pain. You rage at the mirror, not seeing that your collapse is the voice of everything you repressed. Do you still believe empathy costs nothing, culture? The empath as scapegoat. You take on the wounds of society, poverty, injustice, cruelty. You absorb endless news, endless stories of suffering until your nervous system is shredded. You call it awareness, but is it not also addiction to pain? You cannot save everyone, but you act as though it is your duty. How many times have you drowned in outrage online, carrying the world's burdens as though they were your own? And when you finally erupt, lashing out at strangers, cutting ties, retreating into bitterness, was it noble, or was it collapse disguised as activism? The pattern is clear. Snapping is never sudden. It is years of yes when you meant no. It is decades of soothing others while starving yourself. It is the slow erosion of the soul until one day the shadow bursts through the persona. And when it does, the eruption is terrifying, not because you are evil, but because you are human. So the questions pierce. How many of your kind actions are driven by fear, not love? How many of your sacrifices are bargains with childhood wounds, not free choices? How many of your smiles are masks stretched thin over resentment? And most urgently, will you notice the danger now while you can still set boundaries? Or will you wait until the day you snap, when no one, including you, will recognize who you become? Because the empath snap is not just rage, it is revelation. It exposes the truth you denied. Empathy without self-respect is self-destruction. And if you will not face it consciously, The shadow will face it for you, loudly, violently, and without mercy. The empath's collapse is not random. It follows a sequence, a mechanism that begins quietly and ends explosively. Jung's psychology shows you that what you repress never disappears. It only gathers force beneath the surface until it bursts. The empath's snap is this principle in action: compassion distorted into compulsion, silence hardened into rage, virtue curdled into destruction. Psychological: the trap of repression. Every time you say yes while meaning no, you rehearse repression. You bury anger, envy, exhaustion. But the psyche does not forget. What is unlived festers in the unconscious, feeding the shadow. Ask yourself how many of your generous actions were done not freely but out of fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being unloved. The more you repress, the more you build pressure. Eventually, the unconscious erupts and you no longer recognize yourself. Do you see how the storm is built not in one moment, but in thousands of small silences? Emotional guilt as a weapon against yourself. Guilt convinces you that to set boundaries is selfish. You equate anger with cruelty, refusal with abandonment, honesty with harm. So you swallow emotion until it corrodes you. But repressed emotion always finds release through passive aggression, sudden outbursts, or disproportionate fury. Ask, do you truly believe endless sacrifice is love, or is it fear disguised as virtue? And when your guilt finally cracks, is it not replaced by resentment so sharp it wounds everyone around you? Behavioral compulsion masquerading as care. Your caretaking becomes compulsive. You rush to soothe, fix, rescue. Outwardly, it looks like empathy. Inwardly, it is avoidance. You avoid your own needs by obsessing over others. You avoid your own pain by repairing theirs. Yet compulsive behavior erodes resilience. Each burden you carry chips away at your strength until collapse is inevitable. How many times have you confused exhaustion with devotion? How many of your so-called selfless acts were really unconscious bargains? Ethical, enabling as corruption. The empath believes they are helping, but often they enable dysfunction. You excuse cruelty, protect abusers, and shield others from consequences. Out of fear of conflict, you allow corruption to grow. Jung warns, repression does not only wound you, it infects those around you. Ask how many people stayed broken because you kept saving them from facing themselves. How much harm have you allowed under the disguise of compassion? The ethical cost of false empathy is grave. You betray not only yourself, but also the other by preventing their growth. Existential, the unlived life's revolt. At the core lies the greatest danger, the unlived life. Every choice to silence yourself, every refusal to rest, every denied need becomes an exile from your true self. Over years, that exile deepens until the self revolts. The snap is not just rage at others, it is rebellion against your own erasure. Ask yourself, do you not feel the weight of all the years spent living for others? Do you not sense the quiet despair of knowing your life has been consumed by roles, duties, masks? The existential truth is brutal. If you do not claim your life, your shadow will claim it for you. The mechanism unfolds as a chain. Repression breeds guilt. Guilt fuels compulsion. Compulsion enables dysfunction. Dysfunction deepens exile, and exile ends in eruption. Each stage feels ordinary, even virtuous, until the final stage when the empath snaps and everyone is shocked. But you should not be shocked. The signs were there in every silence, every forced smile, every exhaustion denied. So the questions cut deep. Which stage are you in now? Are you still repressing, telling yourself it is kindness? Are you ruled by guilt, afraid of what will happen if you speak truth? Are you compulsively rescuing others to avoid your own pain? Are you enabling dysfunction while calling it compassion? Or have you already begun to feel the revolt of the unlived life inside you? Because the mechanism is merciless. If you will not confront it consciously, it will confront you violently. The day the empath snaps is not fate, it is the consequence of ignoring this chain. The only way to break it is to face it now, before your silence becomes your shattering. If the empath's collapse is built step by step, the only way to prevent it is to reverse the steps consciously. Jung does not offer you a formula, but a path. Bring the unconscious into awareness. Confront what you repress and claim your own life before the shadow claims it for you. The following practices are not suggestions for comfort, but imperatives for survival. Observation. Naming the drain before it devours you. Begin with ruthless honesty. Notice where your empathy depletes instead of nourishes. Ask yourself, after helping, do you feel lighter or heavier? Do you walk away with energy or with silent resentment? Track the patterns. Which people leave you hollow? Which tasks feel like theft, not service? Observation is the first act of sovereignty. Without it, you confuse slow self-erasure with virtue. Can you bear to admit where your kindness is already killing you? Boundaries, the discipline of refusal. You were taught that saying no is cruelty. The truth, refusal is love in its highest form. By setting boundaries, you protect both yourself and the other from corruption. Ask which burdens are yours and which belong to others. How many times have you stolen someone's growth by rescuing them too soon? Boundaries are not walls but fences. They preserve dignity, proportion, and balance. Where today must you say no so that your yes regains its meaning? Shadow work, meeting the anger you fear. The shadow waits behind every forced smile. You tell yourself you are not angry, not envious, not tired. Yet do you not feel the pulse of rage in your chest, the resentment in your silence? Jung insists, what you repress returns with vengeance. Safer to meet it now than let it explode later. Write your rage, speak it aloud, confess it in a trusted circle. Ask, what am I hiding from myself that one day will erupt against others? The shadow does not vanish, it transforms when you face it. Reframing from martyrdom to strength. You must rewrite the story you tell yourself. Empathy without self-respect is not compassion, it is servitude. Empathy with boundaries is strength. Reframe each act of giving. Am I doing this from freedom or from fear? Am I choosing to love or am I bribing others to keep me? The reframing is moral as well as psychological. Ask, if I continue to erase myself, am I truly serving life or only rehearsing death in slow motion? Daily practice, small acts of sovereignty. Do not wait for collapse to claim your life. Each day practice one act of proportion. Refuse one burden that is not yours. Speak one truth instead of swallowing it. Rest when guilt tells you to keep going. Say yes only when your whole being consents. Jung reminds you, individuation is daily fidelity, not dramatic moments. Will you dare to begin with 25 minutes of honest presence time where you serve no one but the self? Community circles that honor boundaries. Even prophets needed companions. You cannot hold vision or empathy alone. Find those who respect your no as much as your yes, who see your needs as human, not flaws. Ask who in my circle feeds on me and who truly walks beside me. Without allies, empathy decays into slavery. With allies, empathy matures into wisdom. Are you willing to leave toxic attachments so that you may finally belong to those who honor your wholeness? Integration, compassion, that includes yourself. The end is not less empathy, but truer empathy, compassion that includes you. Integration means balancing opposites, care with assertion, listening with speaking, giving with receiving. Ask, do I offer others what I never give myself? Do I believe their suffering matters more than mine? Integration is not selfishness, it is proportion. Without it, your gift will destroy you. With it, your gift becomes unshakable strength. The applications are not gentle suggestions, they are lifelines. If you will not observe set boundaries, confront the shadow, reframe your story, and practice sovereignty daily, then the day you snap will be unavoidable. But if you dare to act now, you transform collapse into clarity. So the question presses, will you continue sacrificing yourself on the altar of false kindness, waiting for the shadow to shatter you? Or will you begin today, in small but decisive steps, to reclaim the life that is yours? Because the cost of ignoring this work is catastrophe, but the reward of practicing it is wholeness. The choice is already before you. The danger of being an empath is not in your gift itself, it is in how you betray it. Jung warned that whatever you repress returns with vengeance. For you, that vengeance is the day your buried anger erupts, the day your patience cracks, the day your endless giving becomes unbearable. When the empath snaps, it is not kindness that speaks, but the shadow you refused to face. Do you really want to wait until collapse forces you to listen? You call it selflessness, but is it not often self-erasure? You call it compassion, but is it not sometimes fear of conflict disguised as virtue? You soothe everyone else, but do you not hear the silence of your own neglected soul? And when you finally break, will the ones you carried understand? Or will they recoil, shocked because they never saw the storm you hid? The truth is merciless. Empathy without boundaries is not love. It is slow suicide. Yet the same truth is liberating when you integrate your shadow. When you honor your own needs, empathy becomes unshakable strength. Jung's call is not to abandon compassion, but to reclaim it through proportion. To give without erasing, to serve without betraying yourself. So ask yourself now, will you keep mistaking exhaustion for devotion, silence for peace, martyrdom for love? Or will you face the shadow before it chooses the day of your collapse? Your call to action is simple and urgent today. Set one boundary you have long feared to set. Refuse one burden that is not yours. Speak one truth you have swallowed too long. In that act, you prevent the eruption and begin integration. The day the empath snaps is terrifying, but it is not inevitable. The choice is yours. Destruction through denial or wholeness through courage. Which will you choose?